As the heat persists across West Michigan, those experiencing homelessness aren't getting a break from it. News 8's Cameron James shows us what's being done to help people across the state.
The early morning chill of 6:17 a.m. in Lansing, Michigan, is met by the tired hiss of a school bus coming to a halt. A child descends, backpack settled, their hair still bearing the disheveled imprint of slumber. Yet, this child's morning didn't commence in the familiar comfort of a bedroom. Instead, their eyes opened in the confined space of a car's back seat. This isn't a story of parents simply giving up, but rather one born from crushing realities. A rent deadline looming, a paycheck that failed to cover the essentials, and the final borrowed couch whose welcome had, at last, expired. And as the unforgiving Michigan winter drips the landscape, a particularly brutal truth emerges. When the engine is inevitably silenced to conserve precious fuel, the biting cold transcends mere discomfort. It transforms, instead, into a chilling, relentless countdown. Welcome to U.S. Homeless Secrets. Here, we meticulously unveil the often unseen narrative of American homelessness, presenting it with absolute clarity, unwavering respect, and paramount safety. We conscientiously steer clear of any graphic depictions. We never engage in harassment, nor do we provoke confrontations. Our unwavering focus remains on the stark realities visible to all, the inherent dignity of every human being, and the concrete solutions that can bring about change. For tonight's special extended presentation, Michigan Homeless Crisis 2025, Pod City Lansing, Families on the Brink, and Children Without a Home. The central, profound question guiding every insight you are about to encounter is deceptively simple. When winter arrives, and the established systems declare no vacancies, where do people truly go? Part 1. Michigan's real number. It's not just homeless. It's one shock away. The reality of homelessness in Michigan often defies the stark, predictable imagery found in conventional headlines. It's not always defined by vast stretches of tents. At times, it manifests in a far quieter, less conspicuous manner, a subtlety that, tragically, renders it all too easy to overlook, until its widespread presence becomes impossible to ignore. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's 2024 Annual Homelessness Assessment Report, AHAR, Michigan's point-in-time estimate reveals 9,739 individuals grappling with homelessness, a figure that includes 1,623 people who were unsheltered, meaning they were sleeping outdoors or in locations definitively not intended for human habitation. And that precise figure merely represents the count. A point-in-time count is conducted on a single night, a mere fleeting snapshot, but homelessness itself is never a mere snapshot. It is fundamentally a chain reaction, for the narrative rarely commences on a cold sidewalk. It begins far more often in settings that appear perfectly normal. A kitchen table graced by a notice for overdue rent, a prescription medication whose cost far exceeds all expectations, a crucial car repair that devours the entire month's discretionary income, a job schedule suddenly reduced from 40 vital hours to a meager 25, a landlord unilaterally raising rent, citing, "That's just the market now." Then, almost imperceptibly, what was once barely making it transforms into completely failing to make it. And in Michigan, that precipice is particularly sharp and unforgiving, because winter offers no room for negotiation. HUD's 2024 AHAR further illustrates that Michigan's homeless population encompasses both individuals and families, with 5,882 individuals and 3,857 people within families with children accounted for in that specific snapshot. So when someone asserts homelessness primarily affects single adults, Michigan's landscape offers a bracing, undeniable truth. There are mothers and fathers struggling. There are children navigating hardship. There are entire families desperately striving to remain invisible. Because within the American context, there exists a demographic rarely conjured when people envision homelessness. The family publicly striving to do everything right. A mother diligently ensuring her child reaches school. A father punctually clocking in for his shift. A teenager earnestly attempting to complete homework. All the while, silently burdened by the urgent query, Where will we find shelter tonight? And this is where Michigan's unfolding story in 2025 transcends its geographical boundaries. Because Michigan is not merely a state grappling with homelessness. Michigan is a state under immense pressure, and pressure, inevitably, always exposes the weakest seam. Part 2, 7,000 households on the edge. When funding shifts, real people fall. Now we must address a subject that lacks dramatic visual appeal for the camera, yet possesses the power to push entire families off a cliff. These are funding decisions, intricate policy formulas, rules meticulously drafted in distant offices, far removed from the individuals who will acutely feel their impact in their very bones. In 2024, Michigan's Attorney General Dana Nessel publicly announced legal action in response to proposed HUD funding reductions, issuing a stark warning that such changes could jeopardize housing stability for more than 7,000 households across Michigan, including an estimated 2,000 families with children, and vividly outlining the potential devastation if these vital services were to be curtailed. Let's translate that stark warning into the tangible realities of everyday life. If a program experiences a loss of funding, it doesn't simply lose a line item on a budget sheet. It can in fact lose dedicated case managers who actively work to prevent eviction, precious rapid rehousing slots, essential shelter staff whose presence keeps doors open, vital outreach teams who proactively seek out individuals before frostbite finds them, crucial support services designed to help families maintain stable housing once they've secured a key. And here is precisely what makes this situation so perilous. The general public typically perceives homelessness after the fall has occurred, but that fall frequently begins far earlier, quietly, within a household that still technically possesses walls. A family now falling behind on rent payments. A family doubling up, sharing cramped spaces with relatives. A family residing temporarily in a motel room. A family sleeping in a vehicle, yet still diligently showing up for work and school. They do not conform to the pervasive stereotype. They resemble your neighbors, because indeed they are. That is why these statistics hold profound importance, not as fodder for political discourse, nor as ammunition for online arguments, but as measurable human weight. Because when assistance dwindles, families do not simply vanish. They relocate. They compress themselves into even smaller, more precarious living situations. And eventually the world sees them, but often only when it is tragically too late to prevent the fall. So Michigan enters 2025 grappling with two harsh realities simultaneously. Thousands already counted as experiencing homelessness on a single, frigid winter night. Thousands more explicitly warned to be on the precipice if crucial supports are weakened. That is not merely a crisis. That is an alarming pipeline. Part 3, Pod City, Lansing, when a bed becomes front-page news. Now we arrive at an image that profoundly resonates with a sense of the future. A structured line of compact, individual units. A carefully managed site. A designated space conceived to shield people from the deadly cold. Yet one that doesn't confer the permanence of a home. In Lansing, a sleeping pod-style shelter initiative garnered significant attention as an emergency response to pressing needs, with local news reporting detailing a plan to deploy dozens of individual pods to offer a considerably safer alternative to sleeping outdoors during the brutal cold months. To some observers watching from afar, it sounds like an undeniable breakthrough, because when contrasted with the harshness of a sidewalk, a pod offers a form of mercy. Compared to a car that cannot afford to keep its engine running, a pod represents sheer survival. But here resides the uncomfortable, unvarnished truth. A pod is unequivocally not a home. A pod is, at best, an emergency bandage. And bandages undeniably matter, because bandages can and do save lives. However, bandages alone cannot heal the underlying wound if the injury continues to manifest, relentlessly, every single day. So let's candidly discuss what Pod City truly represents, without either demeaning it or romanticizing its purpose. What pods demonstrably can do, the life-saving component. Keep individuals alive in conditions of extreme cold. Provide a predictable and consistent place to sleep. Significantly reduce exposure risk. Establish a stable point where outreach efforts can connect reliably. Offer a measure of dignity compared to the public exposure of sleeping outdoors. What pods definitively cannot do, the challenging reality. Replace the urgent need for affordable housing. Substitute for comprehensive long-term supportive housing. Rectify the fundamental disparity between wages and rent. Resolve overwhelming medical debt. Erase profound personal trauma. Halt persistent eviction cycles. Guarantee the existence of the next crucial step towards stability. Therefore, the critical question Michigan must squarely confront is not, are pods inherently good or bad? The real, foundational question is, what exactly happens after an individual leaves the pod? Because if no viable pathway forward exists, then pods merely become a waiting room with no discernible door out. And if that door out is not ultimately housing, then we are not genuinely solving homelessness. We are, in essence, merely managing its visibility. Part 4. The Children You Don't See. Homelessness that hides in plain sight. Now we must turn our attention to the aspect of this crisis that is perhaps the easiest to overlook. Children. Because children do not always manifest their struggles in the same visible ways that adults do. They do not stand on street corners bearing signs. They do not openly establish encampments. They do something fundamentally different. They strive to continue attending school. They endeavor to maintain their daily routine. They desperately try to prevent their world from publicly collapsing. HUD's 2024 HR indicates that Michigan counted 3,857 individuals within families with children in its point-in-time estimate. That number is far more than a mere statistic. That represents bedtime stories whispered in borrowed rooms. That symbolizes car seat naps, born of necessity. That is a child learning to remain silent at night because the parking lot outside has security patrols. That encompasses parents quietly whispering, "Don't tell your teacher," because while knowledge can sometimes bring help, it can also, at times, bring a cascade of unintended consequences, judgmental attitudes, the profound fear of child welfare involvement, school-related stigma, experiences of bullying, a debilitating label that can adhere for years. So families actively conceal their circumstances. They move with relentless frequency. They rotate through a succession of relatives' homes, friends' spare spaces, motel rooms, personal vehicles, temporary rented rooms, short-term assistance programs, and each successive move incurs a significant cost. Precious gas money, irreplaceable time, vital sleep, deteriorating mental health, fundamental stability, a child's diminishing sense of safety. And here is what the public frequently misunderstands. A child can be consistently getting good grades and simultaneously be living in profound crisis. A child can be smiling brightly during recess and still be silently pondering, "Where are we sleeping tonight?" This is precisely why emergency responses are crucial, but also why they are, by their very nature, never quite enough. Because when a child experiences housing instability for an extended period, it fundamentally alters their development. Their sleep patterns, their capacity for focus, their stress response mechanisms, their ability to trust, their capacity for long-term planning. Not because the child is inherently broken, but because sustained instability trains the developing brain to operate in perpetual survival mode. And that is the profound, unseen impact that no one fully grasps when they simply scroll past a news headline. Part 5. Detroit, Grand Rapids, and Small Towns. One state, many homelessnesses. Michigan's story of homelessness is not a monolithic narrative. It is, rather, a complex map woven from distinct realities. Detroit, the stark visibility and sheer volume. In expansive urban centers, homelessness often manifests as pervasive street homelessness, shelters strained beyond capacity, and public spaces forced to serve as overflow. Grand Rapids, a nexus of growth, rent pressure, and families on the edge. In rapidly expanding metropolitan areas, the crisis frequently arises from a critical housing shortage clashing head-on with wages that simply cannot keep pace. Smaller towns, the concealed crisis. And in smaller, more rural communities, the situation can be worse in a fundamentally different way, because there might be significantly fewer shelter beds available, a scarcity of case managers, fewer accessible clinics, a smaller pool of landlords willing to rent to those with prior evictions, limited public transportation options, decidedly fewer second chances. In a compact community, the loss of housing can literally mean being stranded. And when individuals find themselves stranded, they do what all humans instinctively do. They seek warmth. They seek cover. They seek a place where they will not be noticed. That might be a vehicle discreetly parked behind a building, a borrowed couch that provides refuge for merely 2 nights, a location that is technically not allowed, but feels inherently safer than any of the stark alternatives. And this is precisely where enforcement debates often miss the crucial point. People do not sleep in places not designated for living because they find it enjoyable. They do it because every other alternative is demonstrably worse. So if communities genuinely desire public spaces to be safe and usable, and they rightly do, then the solution cannot solely be move along. Because move along, without providing adequate capacity, is nothing more than a cruel game of musical chairs played with human lives. Part 6. What actually changes outcomes? A Michigan roadmap that doesn't require dehumanization. This is where U.S. Homeless Secrets draws a clear, uncompromising line. You can profoundly care about maintaining clean, safe public spaces, and simultaneously champion human dignity. You can earnestly desire fewer encampments, and vigorously demand real, sustainable exits from homelessness. You can fully support established rules, and insist that people always have somewhere lawful and safe to go. So here is a practical, non-political roadmap, meticulously built around strategies that consistently prove effective in real-world systems. A. Prevention is the cheapest rescue. If 7,000 households are teetering on the brink, the immediate objective must be to halt their fall, before it escalates into a visible street crisis. That necessitates readily available emergency rental assistance, proactive utility shutoff prevention, facilitated mediation with landlords, crucial legal aid in eviction cases, agile, rapid problem-solving funds, effective hospital discharge coordination so individuals are not released directly into homelessness. Prevention may not generate viral views or dramatic headlines, but it undeniably stops homelessness at its very source. B. Emergency shelter must genuinely match real human reality. If shelters are overly restrictive, perceived as unsafe, geographically too distant, or excessively difficult to access, people will actively avoid them, even in the brutal grip of winter. Properly implemented low-barrier shelter includes distinctly safer spaces specifically for families, staff who are trained in trauma-informed care, practical, empathetic rules, secure storage options for personal belongings, clear, accessible pathways to permanent housing, not merely a mat for the night. See, a pod can be mercy if it's connected to a door out. Projects like Lansing's sleeping pods can undoubtedly prevent individuals from freezing to death. However, they must be directly and seamlessly connected to rapid rehousing programs, dedicated supportive housing slots, crucial benefits enrollment assistance, integrated medical and behavioral health support, efficient ID replacement services, consistent, individualized case management. Otherwise, they regrettably become nothing more than a perpetual holding pattern. D. Protect documents as if they are life-saving medicine. When individuals lose essential IDs and vital paperwork, they simultaneously lose access to housing, critical benefits, employment opportunities, and necessary health care. Communities can proactively create secure, reliable storage systems, efficient rapid ID replacement support, designated mail pickup points, caseworker-led document clinics at shelters and drop-it centers. E. Measure success with absolute honesty, not merely by fewer visible tents. True, meaningful success looks like a tangible reduction in unsheltered people during winter, fewer families forced to live in their vehicles, a decrease in children cycling between precarious temporary situations, more individuals successfully transitioning into stable housing and remaining housed, a significant reduction in repeat episodes of homelessness. Because the ultimate goal is not to merely conceal suffering. The profound goal is to alleviate it. Outro: Michigan winter doesn't care who you are. That's why we have to. When this episode concludes, the pervasive cold will stubbornly persist. In Lansing, the innovative pods will still stand, providing life-saving refuge for some through the night, while countless others anxiously await their name to be called. Across Michigan, the thousands counted as homeless on a single night will continue their arduous attempt to navigate a system that often feels like an impenetrable maze. And families who have been warned they are on the very edge will still be performing their quiet, agonizing calculations. Rent versus heat, food versus gas, medicine versus sheer survival. So here is what I implore you to carry with you. Homelessness is never someone else's problem. It is, in truth, what tragically occurs when the margin of safety utterly disappears, and what was once considered normal life becomes merely one emergency away from complete collapse. And you, the viewer watching this, actually possess power without allowing this vital issue to devolve into divisive politics and without placing yourself in direct danger. Lend your support to credible local organizations dedicated to shelter, domestic violence assistance, eviction prevention, outreach, and rehousing initiatives. Donate wisely through established organizations, thermal socks, hygiene kits, winter gear, to ensure your contributions are safe, coordinated, and genuinely helpful. Familiarize yourself with local resources so you can direct someone to authentic help instead of simply guessing. Advocate passionately for tangible solutions that genuinely reduce unsheltered homelessness, not merely displace it. Steadfastly refuse dehumanization, both online and in real life, because language can, and often does, shape policy faster than people realize. Now, I eagerly await your thoughts. Where are you watching this from? And in your specific area, what intervention would save the most lives this winter? Increased shelter capacity, more affordable housing options, stronger prevention programs, or improved mental health access? Please keep your comments respectful. Keep them human. This is U.S. Homeless Secrets. And always remember, the next story of homelessness isn't someday. It is already unfolding tonight, beneath the very same winter sky you are sleeping beneath.